Whereas 22% of this total Swarthmore College student body were reported to be first generation for the fall semester of 2021, which approximates to 372 students. Whereas 18.8% of the total Swarthmore College student body were reported to receive a Pell Grant for the fall semester of 2021, which approximates to 317 students. Whereas 33% of the admitted students of the class of 2026 are among the first generation of their family to attend college. Whereas the admissions office of Swarthmore College claims to meet 100% of admitted students' determined financial need, regardless of citizenship status. Whereas the student budgeting committee allocated a mere $22 to Solace, the Swarthmore organization of low-income students in 2017.
My name's Ella Vetter. I'm a senior, she, her pronouns. Other concerns that I think we've been trying to address have to do with just like the general institution and just like the experience here, like academics, accessing resources and making sure that FLI students have access to them. So sure, Swarthmore has so many different resources that, like we have career services, there's the FLI office, there's all these different things, but knowing that they're there and knowing how to access them are two very different things. And I think that the school does not necessarily do the best job of making sure that the correct students have access to these resources. So I think the concerns that we take into our own hands are more so like us looking out for each other, because the institution doesn't necessarily look out for us. But when you come here, you're sort of dropped into a bubble of like very just like prestigious people who are used to like advocating for themselves and used to having access to all these resources and stuff. So we can make the argument that Swarthmore accepts FLI students and puts them on an equal playing field with their peers and stuff, but that's just simply not true because it's not possible to have an equal playing field. So I think a lot of the concerns that we address are simply equaling that playing field within our own community and taking that into our own hands.
I think the median household income for a Swarthmore student is $165,000.
That's crazy.
That's a lot of money.
It's a rich
Like, just think about that, right? 2/3 of the student body of the school are from families whose income is in the top 20%. And as we learned today, Swarthmore doesn't do an excellent job of social mobility either. Was it 8%? 8.9% of students who came in the bottom 40% go to the top 40%. Right? 8% of those students are actually able to move up.
If we think about a family that's making $1 million per year and a family that's making $15,000 or $20,000 per year, which one might need $22? Yeah, it's obvious. So when we're questioning admin on these things, and they're telling us in the case of maybe an endowment that was recently causing some issues, or who really needs the funding? Is it actually inequitable to be handing certain athletic intramural clubs tens of thousands of dollars? I think it's always important to ask these questions of what is equitable. And ultimately, it's giving FLI students the resources they need to succeed as well as their country.
Whereas the above-mentioned FLI Council quasi-endowment has not yet been established. Whereas the above-mentioned past allocations, while valuable, do not provide enduring support for the FLI student body. Whereas the creation of the FLI Council quasi-endowment aims to close class inequalities for Swarthmore students by providing funds for both sustainable initiatives that create lasting structural change, as well as meeting the evolving needs of current FLI students. Therefore, be resolved, the student government organization recognizes the need for and the integrity of the FLI Council as a representative body for FLI students. And be it further resolved, the student government organization launched a quasi-endowment for FLI Council that exists in perpetuity as long as Swarthmore College exists.
in reference to what happened on Sunday. I think the biggest conversation is that this was a vote that had already happened 2 years ago, right? The student government organization in 2021. So I guess a year ago, maybe not two. But the student government organization had already voted to establish a quasi endowment for the FLI council. And what that would do is basically just have a solid bucket of money that the FLI council could always rely on. Because I think, right, like I think part of it too is that like us and within student government, there's things that are under our purview and there's things that aren't. And I think like we cannot change like how the college budgets their finances, so we cannot be like, okay, we take a vote and like suddenly another 50, 100K goes to the FLI office, right? Like we don't have that power. But I think what we do have the power to do is move student money, right? Like, so that falls under our purview, and we have that's what we do have the power to do. What happened on Sunday was really about sending a message to administration that, you know, like you can have your opinions and you can tell us that you don't think we should do this and you can come at us and criticize our work and whatever it is. But at the end of the day, like this establishing the quasi endowment is something that is under our purview. And I think, you know, like when the quasi endowment was established in 2018 for another purpose by the student government back then, there was no scrutiny, right? There was no like fuss. It was just like, okay, a vote happened, sent it to SBC, and then it went to the board of managers and it passed.
And you can see these examples on here in terms of prep, books, exam fees, scuba diving, learn how to fly a plane. SBC at the time did not know how to use this money at all. So there was no overall mission of what to do with the funds. So to have the directors from IPDs come up and say that there was this preset mission, absolutely absurd. A lot of these documents exist, and the only reason that these documents are circulating is because us students have kept the knowledge throughout all this time, throughout all the admin turnover and turmoil, and it's us who are bringing these documents to attention to admin because they have done a terrible job keeping track of all of this, right? And there are many documents like this that make it clear that SGO has full discretion to dictate the terms and use of this money, and to say that it's impossible looks over the fact that we have done this in the past, that we have the receipts to prove that we've done it in the past, and there's no reason why we can't do it again.
Being a FLI student and just like reflecting on our own experiences, we have more experiences that focus around like instability and not knowing where things are coming from, and just this idea of not having access to the things that our peers have access to, or, you know, just trying to find a way on our own. So I think to me what the endowment symbolizes is an acknowledgement that FLI students deserve the resources and that support should be institutionalized, and it symbolizes the fact that like that students at Swarthmore are not on an equal playing field. However, this like pot of money and this idea of an endowment symbolizes like support and an acknowledgement of that. You know, a lot of the pushback that we've been getting around the endowment is like, oh, it's not equitable, and like other student groups don't have access to this, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what have we not had access to our entire lives compared to the rest of our peers? And for you to make the argument is just at this point like insulting. So I don't know. The endowment to me is like a metaphor for stability in a way. And I think that at Swarthmore, over the last couple years, we've realized that a lot of times students do have their best interests at heart, like their own personal interests at heart, and it's not necessarily those of the most vulnerable within their community. So I think having the security of an endowment guarantees that we will always have access to that money. And for anybody to make the argument that we always have access to money just like any other student group, that's just simply not true. And I think there's something to be said about the way we have to justify all of our purchases. And, you know, I've been in SBC meetings where they're like, a food pantry, like, what do you guys need a food pantry for? How's that student activities? And you're right, it's not student activities, but at the same time, the school doesn't allocate proper resources to us, so we have to take it into our own hands to provide those. So the endowment is just something that symbolizes that we know FLI students will always exist, and Swarthmore will continue to throw the statistic around and continue to accept FLI students because it makes them look good, and they get access to all this money and donors and alumni. They love to see FLI students, but we know that support, that financial support, stays there for this group. Yeah.
So, motion to vote.
Second. All yeses, raise your hands and raise them high so I can count, please. Keep it raised, keep it raised. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then what does Trisha vote, Fiona?
Yes.
18. Okay.
Please put your hands down. All noes, please raise your hand. And any abstentions? 3 abstentions. The vote passes. We will bring this to the Board of Managers as soon as we can.